Your mother died with nothing but debt and delusions, Dad sneered across the mahogany conference table, his new wife nodding approvingly. And you're headed down the exact same pathetic path, Jade. But the call buzzing in my pocket wasn't from a debt collector, it was from the trustee of an account I'd just learned existed. The offices of Hartwell and Associates had been the site of every major family humiliation for the past decade. Divorce proceedings when I was 12. Custody battles at 14. The reading of Mom's Will 6 months ago, where Dad and his second family had laughed at her estate of costume jewelry and dog-eared books. Now we were here for the finalization of her financial affairs, though Dad had made it clear this was just a formality, a final confirmation that Miranda Wells had died as poorly as she lived. I don't know why we even bothered coming, my stepmother Vivian said, examining her manicure. It's not like there's anything to settle. The woman was a waitress. A failed artist who waitressed, Dad corrected. Let's be precise about the level of failure we're discussing. My half-brother Connor snorted from his seat. At 22, he'd already inherited Dad's sneer and Vivian's contempt for anyone who worked for hourly wages. My half-sister Brittany, 19 and pre-med at Yale, didn't look up from her phone but added, at least she's not around to embarrass us anymore. Brittany, Dad said mildly. That's unkind. But accurate, Vivian added, how many times did we have to explain why Jade's mother wasn't invited to family events? Oh, she's pursuing her art. As if finger painting in a studio apartment counts as a career. I sat silently in my designated chair, the one farthest from the family cluster, positioned like an afterthought. At 25, I'd learned that defending Mom only prolonged the torture. They'd made their verdict long ago. Miranda Wells was a failure who trapped Richard Harrison into marriage with pregnancy, then couldn't even do him the courtesy of disappearing completely after the divorce. The only smart thing Miranda ever did was sign that prenup, Dad continued. Saved me millions when I finally escaped that disaster of a marriage. She didn't have a choice, I said quietly, my first words since entering the room. What was that? Dad's voice sharpened. The prenup. You told her sign it or you'd fight for full custody from day one. A corporate lawyer versus a pregnant art student. She knew she'd lose. Ancient history, Vivian waved dismissively. The point is, she got what she deserved. Nothing. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it. Urgent, please call regarding the Miranda Wells Trust. Are we boring you, Jade? Dad noticed my distraction. I know this must be tedious, finalizing just how little your mother achieved, but try to focus. She achieved plenty, I said. Name one thing. One single accomplishment that mattered. I thought about Mom in her tiny studio, painting through the night. The galleries that rejected her. The waitressing shifts that paid for my school supplies. The way she'd say, success isn't always visible, baby. Sometimes it's just surviving with your soul intact. She raised me, I said finally. And look how that turned out. Connor gestured at my appearance, thrift store jeans, Dad's old college sweatshirt I'd claimed years ago, scuffed boots. Following right in her footsteps. What do you do again? Freelance writing? Fact-checking, I corrected. For magazines. So, professional pedantry, Brittany looked up long enough to smirk. Minimum wage? It pays enough. Enough for what? That studio apartment in Queens? The same neighborhood where your mother died. Brittany, Dad said again, but his heart wasn't in the reprimand. The door opened and Martin Hartwell entered, looking every day of his 70 years. He'd handled Dad's business for decades, managed the divorce, overlooked the custody arrangements that slowly stripped Mom of time with me. Sorry for the delay, he said, settling behind his desk. There's been a development. Development? Dad frowned. Miranda's been dead 6 months. What could possibly develop? I received a call this morning from Whitman Trust Company. They manage certain, discrete financial instruments. Miranda didn't have instruments, Vivian laughed. She had a checking account with overdraft protection. Actually, Martin pulled out a folder, that's what we need to discuss. It seems Ms. Wells had a trust. One that none of us were aware of. The room went silent. That's impossible, Dad said flatly. I knew every penny that woman had. Or didn't have. The trust was established in 1975, Martin continued. Long before your marriage. The documents were sealed, with instructions to remain sealed until certain conditions were met. What conditions? I asked, my heart starting to race. Your mother's death and your 25th birthday. Both have now occurred. Who established this supposed trust? Dad demanded. Eleanor Richmond Wells. Mom's grandmother. The one she rarely talked about. The one whose pictures she hidden away after Dad mocked her for pretending to come from money, the pharmaceutical heiress? Vivian's voice went up an octave. The same. Apparently, she and Miranda were close. Close enough that when Eleanor died in 1996, she left provisions for her granddaughter. What kind of provisions? Dad was calculating, I could see it. Community property laws, residual claims, ways to stake a claim on money he'd never known existed. Perhaps I should speak to Ms. Harrison privately, Martin suggested. As the sole beneficiary. Sole beneficiary? Dad stood. I was her husband. Ex-husband, I corrected quietly. For 12 years. California is a community property state. The trust predates your marriage, Martin said firmly. And your prenuptial agreement specifically waived claims on any premarital assets. You were very thorough about that, as I recall. Dad's face went red. How much are we talking about? Martin looked at me, asking silent permission. I nodded. The trust has been managed conservatively for 30 years. Current value is approximately $52 million. Vivian's gasp was theatrical. Connor dropped his phone. Brittany went pale under her spray tan. 50. Dad couldn't finish. Million, I completed. $50 million. That's impossible, he said again. Miranda lived like a pauper. Tiny apartment, beat-up car, shopping at discount stores. Why would someone with access to millions live like that? She didn't have access, Martin explained. The trust was structured with very specific conditions. Miranda could draw a small annual amount, $30,000, for emergencies only. She was required to submit documentation for any withdrawal. And did she? I asked, though I suspected the answer. Never. Not once in 30 years. Every penny remains in the trust. But why? Vivian demanded. Why live in poverty with millions sitting there? I knew why. Could hear Mom's voice. Money changes people, baby. Makes them cruel. I'd rather be poor and kind than rich and rotted. The original trust documents include a letter, Martin said, pulling out aged paper. From Eleanor to Miranda. May I? I nodded again. My dearest Miranda, he read. By the time you read this, I'll be gone and you'll be wondering why I've done this. Your father, my son, let wealth corrupt him. He became someone I didn't recognize, someone who valued bank accounts over baby laughs. I won't let that happen to you. This trust is a test and a gift. Live your life. Pursue your art. Fall in love with someone who doesn't know about the money. Raise children who understand value beyond dollars. And when you're gone, when you've lived a full life unburdened by wealth's weight, let it pass to those you've taught to see clearly. The money will wait. It will grow. And someday, someone in our family will be ready to use it wisely. Until then, let it sleep, and live awake. The room was silent except for the sound of Vivian's perfectly manicured nails tapping the table. She knew, I said quietly. All those years, Mom knew there were millions waiting, and she chose to wait tables instead. She was an idiot, Dad spat. She could have. What? Married you for love instead of letting you think you were rescuing her? Raised me to worship money like you worship it? Become someone Eleanor warned her not to become. She let you grow up in poverty. Vivian accused. She let me grow up seeing her paint every morning before her shift. Watching her give her tips to homeless veterans. Learning that happiness isn't a bank balance. Pretty words, Connor scoffed. Easy to say when you're about to inherit millions you didn't earn. Neither did you, I pointed out. But that doesn't stop you from spending Dad's money like water. That's different. How? Because he earned it crushing smaller companies? Because Vivian earned it by marrying well? Because you and Brittany earned it by being born? At least we weren't raised by a failure, Brittany shot back. My mother wasn't a failure. She was an artist who chose integrity over access. A woman who could have bought her way into galleries but earned her way in instead. A mother who taught me that character matters more than credit scores. Touching, Dad said coldly. But legally speaking, I have claims here. I supported Miranda during our marriage. Actually, Martin interrupted, you didn't. I've reviewed the financial records as part of the trust documentation. Miranda paid half of all household expenses throughout your marriage, despite earning a fraction of your income. She has receipts. Of course she does, I said, almost smiling. She kept everything. Furthermore, Martin continued, the prenuptial agreement you insisted on specifically prevents any claim on premarital assets. The trust qualifies as such. I'll contest it, Dad threatened. Mental incompetence. Undue influence. Something. On what grounds? That she chose not to access money she was legally entitled to? That she lived modestly despite having wealth? Courts tend to frown on punishing fiscal responsibility. This is happening, Vivian said faintly. Jade is inheriting $50 million. $52 million, Martin corrected. Plus any accumulated interest since our last accounting. I need a drink, Connor muttered. You need a job, I said, since Dad's money ain't last forever and you been cut out of Mom's will, you wouldn't, Brittany gasped. We're family. Were we family when you posted Instagram stories mocking my mother's funeral? Were we family when you called her white trash at Thanksgiving? Were we family when you made me eat in the kitchen during Dad's promotion party because I didn't fit the aesthetic? Jade, Dad tried a different approach. You're upset. Overwhelmed. This is a lot to process. You need guidance. Financial advisors. Someone to help you manage, someone like you. I have experience with wealth. Your mother clearly didn't prepare you. My mother prepared me perfectly. She taught me to recognize vultures by their circling patterns. How dare you? $52 million, I interrupted. That's how dare I, 52 million reasons to finally say what I've thought for years. You're a small, cruel man who mistook a bank balance for character. Vivian's a trophy wife polishing herself to maintain market value. Connor's a leech with a LinkedIn profile. Brittany's a bully with a meal plan. And I'm done pretending otherwise for the sake of family harmony. You can't talk to us like that, Vivian sputtered. Actually, I can. Wealth privileges, right? Isn't that what you always told me? That money buys the right to truth? Mr. Harrison, Martin said mildly, perhaps we should continue this privately with Ms. Harrison. Excuse me, Ms. Wells? I believe she uses her mother's name professionally. I do, I confirmed. Harrison was never really mine anyway. You ungrateful, Dad started. Grateful for what? The years of emotional abuse? The constant reminders that I was a mistake? The fun game of guess which family events Jade isn't invited to? You're right, I should send a thank you card. If Miranda had told me about the money, you'd have stayed married and made her miserable longer. She knew exactly who you were. That's why she never touched it. Why let you turn her into Vivian, decorative and desperate? Vivian's face flushed under her foundation. I am not desperate. You're on your third face and second nose. You re so desperate to stay young enough for him that you ve forgotten what your original features looked like. Security, Dad barked. Call security. I'm leaving anyway, I stood. Martin, I'll call you tomorrow about the trust details. Of course. And Ms. Wells? Your mother left something else. Not part of the trust, but something she wanted you to have. He handed me a large envelope. I recognized Mom's handwriting, for Jade, when the secret's out. What secret? Connor demanded. What else was she hiding? Everything that mattered, I said, heading for the door. Which is why you never saw it. Jade, Dad called after me. We're not done here. That money, community property, maternal assets, I have rights. I turned back one last time. You have exactly what you bargained for. A prenup that protects premarital assets. A second family that costs more than it's worth. A reputation for ruthlessness that impresses shallow people. Congratulations. You won. And what did you win? He sneered. Money you didn't earn from a grandmother you never met? I won a mother who chose integrity over ease. Who painted beauty while you collected ugliness. Who died thinking she left me nothing but turned out to have left me everything, including the satisfaction of watching you realize you screwed yourself out of $50 million with your own prenup. I left them there, Dad raging, Vivian calculating, Connor googling inheritance law, Brittany probably already crafting an Instagram post about her tragic situation. In the elevator, I opened Mom's envelope. Inside were two things, a small watercolor painting of a sunrise and a letter. My darling Jade. If you're reading this, then Martin has told you about the money and your father has shown you exactly why I never touched it. I'm sorry for the years of struggle, but I'm not sorry for the choices I made. Eleanor was right, money changes people. I watched it change your father from an ambitious law student into someone who measures human worth in net worth. I couldn't let it change me, and I couldn't let it shape you. But you're stronger than I was. Smarter. You've seen what wealth does to souls, and you've chosen kindness anyway. The money is yours now. Use it wisely. Or wildly. Or don't use it at all. Just don't let it use you. I painted this sunrise the morning after you were born. It reminds me that every day is a chance to choose who will be. You've chosen well, my darling. Keep choosing. All my love, Mom. P.S. Your father's prenup was his idea, but I hired my own lawyer to review it. I knew about the protection for premarital assets. I signed it smiling. Sometimes the long game is the only game worth playing. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time since she died. The woman who died in a studio apartment with paint-stained fingers had orchestrated a $50 million revelation from beyond the grave. My phone rang. Martin. Ms. Wells? I thought you should know, your father just stormed out threatening litigation. Let him. Mom kept receipts, remember? Indeed. Also, I didn't mention this in front of them, but there's more to the trust. Property holdings, art collections, a publishing company. Your grandmother was extensive in her provisions. How extensive? Let's just say 52 million is the liquid portion. I stopped walking. Martin, are you telling me there's more? Considerably more. Your mother wasn't just protecting money, Ms. Wells. She was protecting a legacy. One that includes several paintings now valued quite highly. It seems your grandmother collected early works by artists who later became famous. Your mother could have sold them anytime. But she didn't. She painted her own instead. Lived her own life. Made her own choices. And now those choices are mine to make. Indeed. Shall we meet tomorrow to review everything? Yes. And Martin? Thank you. For keeping the secret all these years. I kept many secrets, Ms. Wells. Most of them were your father's. This was the only one worth keeping. After we hung up, I walked to the subway, probably for one of the last times. Tomorrow, I'd be officially wealthy. I could buy a car, a house, an entire building if I wanted. I could quit fact-checking and write full-time. Or paint. Or travel. Or all of the above. But tonight, I'd go home to my studio in Queens, the same building where Mom had lived, though Dad never knew I'd moved there after she died. I'd heat up ramen, sit at my desk, and finish the article I was fact-checking about wealth inequality in America. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tomorrow I'd join the 1% I'd spent years writing about. But I'd join it as my mother's daughter, someone who knew that true wealth wasn't what you had but what you did with it. Dad had been wrong. I wouldn't die broke like my mother. I'd live rich like her instead, rich in choices, rich in integrity, rich in the knowledge that she'd played a longer, smarter game than any of them had imagined. $52 million. Plus, considerably more. And all it had cost was keeping a secret for 30 years, living modestly, dying quietly, and trusting that truth would outlast pretense. Mom had been many things: waitress, artist, single mother, keeper of secrets. But failure? Never. The sunrise painting in my bag proved it. Every dawn was a choice. Mom had chosen poverty with integrity over wealth with strings. Now it was my turn to choose. And unlike Dad, who'd spent his life choosing money over meaning, I had Mom's example to guide me. Turns out that was worth more than $52 million. Turns out that was worth everything.